Mr. Hartke, I'd like to start by asking you why you decided to run for mayor of Chandler.
Great. Well, thank you. I have enjoyed serving our community as mayor for the last 3.5 years. I believe my expertise, my experience, and my passion, and the things that we've done during my first term as well as my previous 2 terms as a council member have set the stage for Chandler to continue to prosper and bring prosperity to all. And that's why I'm running for mayor.
When you talk about city council, do you have any endorsements there or any people you support?
Yeah, I am endorsed by 5 of the 6 council members, certainly by Andy Biggs, and on my website you'll see about another 3 dozen community influencers, business owners, etc. And I am strongly endorsing Farhana Shifa as well as Darla Gonzalez, the 2 other Republicans who are in this race. I'm spending significant amount of my campaigning time to help them because it's all about a team that's going to keep the city moving in the right direction. And even if I win this race, but I do not have some fiscal and social conservative allies, I'm only 1 vote when it comes to those things. So it's extremely important, not just that I get elected, but that these 2 also are elected as fiscal conservative Republicans. One of the things that we're facing in Chandler is more and more across the state, and it's coming into the suburbs, is that the political mix is changing. Chandler has switched as more people have come here, and particularly some folks have left California, but not left California politics, and have come to Chandler and other cities around here. And we have certainly changed from a solid red to a red-leaning purple city. This next election is extremely important, as I mentioned, and if the right people do not get in there, I will be a minority Republican mayor, and that will change the dynamics, a lot of the decisions. At the days, I'm only 1 vote, even though I lead the city. The citizens are the ones that bring our people in. So I am working hard to keep fiscal and social conservatives in office, and I will continue to see whether I'm in office or after my next term when I'm out of office.
Can you talk to any major goals you have for over the next year or 2?
Yeah, so certainly we're continuing to hire, and we're seeing, like every other city has, a migration of people into the private industries. Millennials in particular are less concerned about long-term benefits and more about what are some of the immediate benefits. So we've just completed a classification and compensation study for across the city that will also help us with our public safety hiring. Hired about 37 in the past year, as well as an equal amount of non-sworn officers. So currently, between our sworn and non-sworn, we have close to 500 that are part of our police force. And what we've been expanding on recently with the last couple of years, particularly during my terms on council as mayor, is more non-sworn officers. I don't need a sworn officer to teach people how to do the gun range or how to handle the cameras. So it's a lot more cost efficient to hire some of these non-front positions for non-sworn. So hiring is a big position, a very important item. Our water current state, although we are well positioned and perhaps the best of any city because of our aquifer underneath, our recharging and our diversity portfolio, it's an issue that as we go from stage 1 to stage 2 shortage with CIP, that will start to cut into our water services and our messaging. So water, number 2, and by the way, that's a longer term thing with the renegotiation of the Colorado Water Users Pact, which is coming up in 2026. So that will determine what do we do with that. And then thirdly, I would say transportation has become a big issue here with the infrastructure and making sure that not just Chandler, but the entire valley is able to support businesses and residents.
When you talk water, I've heard that the burden of the water cost is placed on the residents of Chandler versus businesses more so. Is that ever going to change, or
Sure.
Where are we on that process?
So every 5 years, we renegotiate and we do a deep dive study. What we noticed this last round was that the actual cost and use of services, there was a greater leaning on the residents. Staff had recommended that we do a 50% further into there. We want 100% so that the water that you receive is actually, it's back to equity, and 75% with wastewater. So we reanalyze this every 5 years to bring parity. And the average water user in Chandler will see about an $80 cent or a dollar addition to their water bill per month. Gilbert went up $150 a year, where ours will go up less than $15 a year. We're the lowest cost of service of any municipality for the cost of water, wastewater, trash. In fact, Chandler is the lowest cost of service of all cities and towns in the entire county. If you look at sales tax, property tax, water services. In fact, I'm on my 7th year of reducing the property tax rate. So it's a value to live in Chandler, and one that we do analyze every 5 years and make adjustments every 2 years.
On the police, how are we incentivizing the hiring process versus other cities close by to us, like Queen Creek, for example?
The good news in Chandler is that we don't have officers leaving Chandler to go to other cities. We have great retention, and even now, even though we are adding incentives, we were the first one to put an incentive for hiring. Other cities followed. Phoenix recently did a massive take on that. We this year have put Chandler Police entire package benefits, the third best of all the cities that we negotiate with or compare ourselves to, whether that's Phoenix, Gilbert, Tempe, Glendale, Queen Creek, all the neighboring cities. We offer probably the third best, and it used to be fourth. We increased those benefits this year to be more competitive.
Are we at a shortage for police in Chandler? Do we need to hire more?
It depends who you talk to. I work very closely with our police chief, who is the vice president of chiefs across the nation, who annually looks at our where we're at and the numbers that we have in terms of modeling, because we have taken away responsibilities that are non-officer facing. As I mentioned, I've added, probably since I've been on council, dozens and dozens of responsibilities that police officers used to have to do, and now we have civilians doing the same job. So that has freed our officers to do their jobs on the street. So we're close. We're catching up. In fact, this last year, I and council authorized, let's just not hire to a full complement. Let's hire 15 additional that will also be available to our police force as officers are in drop, so that we're actually training officers while officers are there. Now, we are having a hard time as every city. So even though I've hired 37 police officers this year, and we've hired police officers every year, it is trying to keep up with the officers retiring, because in the early 90s, we did a big hiring push. And now many of those fine men and women that we strongly support are moving out of policing.
How are we doing as far as the homeless situation in Chandler? Can you speak to that, and what are our remedies?
Yeah. So I started an initiative in Chandler about 8 or 10 years ago called iHelp. It's an acronym that stands for Interfaith Homeless Emergency Lodging Program. That because we utilize churches and nonprofit resources, we run this probably a dime on the dollar if this was a public agency, or if it was a homeless shelter per se. It rotates every night. In fact, I host at least once a month at my church, and we take Wednesdays on our block. But it's a tremendous solution that we've had in place. We are seeing a rise in homelessness, and it's mostly Chandler homelessness. As you're also aware, the cost of housing has gone up just exponentially, and we're finding more and more of our Chandler folks, their safety net has gone out. But one of the things we have been able to do with some of the COVID dollars that have come is we've hired an additional 5 homeless navigators. Their whole job is to go out and meet and talk to people who are on our streets, get them out of there, and they're finding tremendous success. The recent point-in-time count, which I've been participating in since 2009, I've chaired the regional continuum of care to end homelessness, the whole county's efforts for 5 or 6 years. We're doing better than other cities. We're seeing a temporary spike because that point-in-time count also is determined by how well do you do. I had a lot more volunteers this year than any other, and depending how aggressive you are taking volunteers to find homeless people on a 4-hour window, that determines the point-in-time count, that itself. So it's 4 hours. Are you able to find them? A year or two ago, it was rainy, and we could not find anybody, or the numbers were down. So the numbers fluctuate every year.
Is there any incentive or obligation of the homeless when they take resources from the city? Can you talk about that?
Sure.
I mean, is it a never-ending handout, or is there accountability on the part of the homeless as well?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It is not a handout, and absolutely there is a lot of accountability. I'll address iHelp, for example, and then I'll go into other city programs. I've literally helped hundreds, if not 1,000 people through bringing iHelp to Chandler get out of being homeless. To enter into this program, they can stay immediately for a few days, but have to work with navigators to determine what's your plan. What do you need? Do you need documentation? Do you have some fines? Are there other issues going on? Have you lost your Social Security? Are there some other issues? Mental illness or other types of things. And we don't take, by the way, in iHelp anyone who has got active drug problems, or if there's some severe mental illness, because they have to live with others in a room every night. But across that, to enter any of our city programs, there is an extreme level of accountability, and if people don't engage, then they don't stay. And we work hard to figure out why are they homeless and what will it take for them not to be homeless. I've got some people on our streets in Chandler that don't enter the program because they, for whatever reason in this season of their life, they're content being homeless. And maybe it's phobias, maybe it's some drug use. Could be a variety of reasons. And I've talked with, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands of homeless folks through iHelp and my other work. And there's no single story. It's unique.
When you talk about solutions, there's been a noticeable change in an addition of high-density housing. And homeowners in Chandler worry about property values and safety with high-density housing. Can you talk a little bit about the plan of the city when it comes to that?
Yeah. We are so close to build out right now. Right now, Chandler is about 283,000 people. We have pretty much called a moratorium for high-density housing or multi-housing in South Chandler. There's in particular some former successful but now flagging retail centers, for example, Kyrene and Chandler Boulevard, or Warner and Alma School, where we are looking at replacing some of the retail that has failed there with new uses, multi-purpose uses that would include some housing, some new exciting pads to support the existing retail that's in there. So we're close just because we're run out of land. And I can't think that council at any time since I've been on, particularly recently, that we've taken a spot that was zoned for commercial and said, no, let's turn this into multi-housing. In fact, I have resisted dozens and dozens because zoning attorneys will say, well, this is the only thing that will go in there. And when we tell them no, then I have a job creating base that will come in there. So We will see some more, particularly in North Chandler, where we have aging retail, but for the most part, we just don't have the property. Of that 5% of undeveloped property that's currently on there, that's split equally between commercial, retail, and housing. So 5 divided by 3 gives you about, 1.7%. And of that, half of that is already entitled. So there are some spots in South Chandler that got their zoning years and years ago, and they by right can put things up. But concerning new housing zoning projects, those are the ones that we've turned off the spigot.
When it comes to shutdowns, not to take us back in time, but people in Chandler, including many business owners, are fearful of future shutdowns. How do you feel government's role or your role as a leader of our city is when it comes to shutting down businesses, shutting down churches, et cetera?
Yeah, so you're talking in relation to COVID? And
COVID
the
or
lease
any
incidents?
other disaster that happens to come on our horizon.
Sure. Well, this has been the first time in anyone's memory who's currently in government that we've ever called a state of emergency. I called this in Chandler, and we kept it in place for about a year. I met with council weekly at first and then regularly until we saw that there was no return of this. I never instituted a mandatory mask ordinance, unlike some of my neighboring cities, Mesa, Tempe, Phoenix, for example. We never shut down our parks, where Phoenix, for example, had shut theirs down and kept theirs inordinately long. I remember getting signatures about a year and a half ago this time, and talking to Little League baseball parents about how onerous it was sitting outside alone. I called the governor the next day, and the next day, he opened up everything. So businesses in Chandler were extremely grateful that the city never shut down businesses. We had to oblige by the governors, but one of our semiconductor companies, for example, has another plant in Austin, Texas, that shut them down from the city's perspective. And they are now expanding and bringing more high-wage jobs. Guess which one of the two? It's the fiscal conservative, low-regulation government of Chandler that attracts these and is why they're willing to stay and expand.
I personally noticed Chaparosa Park did shut down the volleyball court and the playground, and it was all marked off. So that particular city-run park was shut down. So
for which reasons was it shut down?
COVID, I guess. Kids can't play outside during COVID.
We shut down the bathrooms on a number of these, and we couldn't keep up with some of the cleanings on the early stage of that, but we had a small window that people could not use some of the hand equipment as we and the rest of the nation. But again, I would look back at that, and we've never shut down our parks totally, and we quickly opened those because, again, heat was something, as we found out, that it's good. Heat and COVID don't like each other. So again, Chandler was the most open city that I can recall. Chandler, Gilbert, probably Queen Creek, of any city in the entire valley. We support our guys and gals as a fiscally conservative run city. There's no better run city in the entire state. In fact, I challenge any in the nation. We're one of 40 in the nation that have a AAA bond rating from all three agencies, which means the highest credit possible for if and when we do loan. We're sitting well. We are safe. 10 of the last 12 years, we were voted the safest top 20 cities in the nation. And we continue to make sure that our neighborhoods, that our community is safe, that's well run. And it's an honor as a fiscal conservative Republican mayor to keep it that way.
As leader of the city, how do you feel your role is when it comes to our public schools?
Well, we work with our schools, but in terms of having any say over what they do, we don't determine their curriculum. We're currently working with CUSD on a pretty bold and exciting experiment in one of our older neighborhoods where we have seen some of the higher crime areas. we're actually working partners with them to see how can we get deeper into the reasons of why this square mile is struggling. And this is east of Arizona Avenue, by the way. And so we just are looking at some new partnerships. We're exploring a partnership with the schools to see on some of their properties, can we put up, working with them, some housing possibilities that would serve teachers, that would serve firefighters and police. So at that level, we work well. At the curriculum level, we don't have a say on them. All 4 of my kids are Chandler high school grads, and they've prospered and have done well. So I continue to want to help our school district perform well and make sure that we are offering a program in working with our private partners. For example, Intel I was at an event where they gave every Chandler student a brand new computer, and to help them excel, that we can offer the American dream to everyone in Chandler. And education is a massive part of that.
When it comes to programs like EVIT and giving children other opportunities in the public school system, how does the mayor of Chandler work with those type of programs?
We support EVIT. I've spoken there quite a few times. Again, there's no city dollars that are going into that. We're also working with ASU and U of A on some programs that are going deeper and deeper into high school, junior high, and elementary school. For example, we do a SciTech festival that this last year, every single school had a representation there, and we're really strongly promoting STEM education. That has worked well. Basha High School has a collaborative effort with U of A, and they're doing a cybersecurity tract. And our junior colleges are working, another one is working specifically with CGCC to offer a joint degree. So we strongly applaud these opportunities. And again, my commitment is I really want the American dream to be available to everyone who lives in Chandler.
What's your position on the NDO, the Non-Discrimination Ordinance?
Sure. Well, I've been very vocal and very clear. I am not supporting a non-discrimination ordinance, and I have several reasons for that. And the main one is it looks good if you are a person that is feeling fearful of being discriminated against. We don't have a track record of that in Chandler, and so it is a solution looking for a problem. And number 2, it is onerous, it is complicated, it is cumbersome for the city to hire or to appoint someone to determine whether you experienced a microaggression based upon your sexual preference or something has never been supported once it's been adjudicated past the city. There's not been a single case in Arizona that has gone there. So I support fair treatment of everybody, regardless of their race, of their sex, of their identity. But concerning having a non-discrimination ordinance, I've been quite vocal on they don't work, and it's not a good solution for Chandler.
Thank you.
You're welcome.